All right, the first section, you can see in the directions it says how many points each section is worth. So here each answer is worth 2 points, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 answers. So this whole section will get you 12 points tomorrow. So if it's something that you struggle with, you're kind of gambling with those 12 points unless you go home and study and you can guarantee you're going to get them. So I would encourage you to check out the point value on sections, especially those that you're struggling with, and decide which one is the most valuable for your study time. All right, questions on that idea? Like if you're really struggling with a section that's worth like 4 points, like whatever. But if the section's worth like 25 points, you need to make sure you figure it out before tomorrow. All right. Anyway, number 1, how do I classify that triangle by angles? They're all what type of angles? Okay, it appears that you guys need to study this section. They're all acute angles. 2 sides have the same measure, so it is a scalene triangle by sides. Okay, so make sure you're studying those.
I said it was scalene.
It's not scalene. It's isosceles. This next one by angles is equiangular, and by sides is equilateral. Last by angles is, anybody know? Right. And by sides, scalene. Good. So it appears that if you would like these 12 points, you need to study this section tonight. Any questions? All right, moving on. These are worth 3 points each, so this whole section is worth 9. So is the last one on this page. Number 4, how do I find this missing angle? Angle 1. 180. Subtract the ones you know. That'll give you the one you don't know, which is 130. Good. So if I asked you to classify this triangle by angles, what would you tell me?
180 subtract the side.
To classify it. Like if this exact triangle was up in section number 1, what would your answer be? So if I said, is this acute, right, obtuse, or equiangular, what would you say? Obtuse. Good. Now, there is no word bank tomorrow, so when I say classify by angles and you all stare at me blankly, that is an indicator that there is some studying that needs to happen in the next 24 hours. Got it? Okay. Good. How do I do number 5? Good. You subtract the 40 and the 90 from 180, and what do you get?
50.
50. Good. And last one on this section, now we're trying to find the angle on the outside. Do you remember the trick? You add these two, which is? 75 degrees. Questions? Alright, that section's worth 9 points. 9 points for this next one. If the sides are the same, what do I know about the angles? They're the same, so what is x?
42.
42, good. It goes in reverse too. If you know that the angles are the same, what do you know about the sides? They're the same, so it is 12. And when all the sides are the same, all the angles are the same. When all the angles are the same, they're all
180.
60. They add to 180, but each one of them had to be 60. All right, that is the front page. What are your questions? All right, this back one, these are the factor trees. They are worth 2 points apiece. We'll do it the same way we did it on your quiz. If you did a factor tree that was correct, you're going to get half the points. If you have the correct answer, you get the other half the points.
So
So you have to do both. You have to do the factor tree and you have to get the right answer if you want all the points. Half the points for the tree, half the points for the answer. So to get them all, you got to show your work and do it correctly. All right. Does anyone know the square root of 81? What? Just 9. Yeah, so if you do a factor tree for that one, great. If you don't, though, just 9 is acceptable as well. All right, now there's no way around the factor tree on number 11, so how could I start this one? 2 and 16? Then what?
4.
And?
2.
4 and 4?
Yep.
2 and 2? 2 and 2? So, I have a pair of 2's and another pair of 2's that are going to escape. When a pair of 2's comes out, that gives you 1, 2. When another pair of 2's come out, that gives you another 2. And then what's left inside?
2.
This lonely 2 over here. So what would my final answer be?
4.
4. When you pull out 2 sets of 2's, you multiply those together. Remember, each pair only gives you 1, 2 in the front. So 1, 2 from this pair, 1, 2 from this pair, and then 1, 2 left over. That gives us 4 square root 2. Questions? All right, what is square root 50? 25 and 2. What about the 25?
5.
5 and 5. So what comes out to the front?
5.
Just 1 5. A pair of 5's gives you 1 5 in the front. And then what's your leftovers?
2.
Just the 2. Good. All right, number 13. How do I do that? 3 and 36. What about the 36?
6.
Good. 2, 3, 2, 3. So what are some of my pairs? Okay, here's a pair of 2's and a pair of 3's. So you have a 6 in the front, and then what do you have left over? A 3. Good. Now, 64 is a perfect square, but I'm going to show you how to do it even if you didn't remember it was a perfect square. So you could do like 2 and 32, 2 and 16, 2 and 8, 2 and 4, 2 and 2. So here's a pair of 2's, here's a pair of 2's, here's a pair of 2's. Everybody have it? So I have a 2, and a 2. What's 2 times 2? Times another 2? No. 2 times 2 is
4.
times another 2, 8. What do you have left over inside the square root? What didn't have a partner? They all had partners, right? That's why you don't have a square root when it's a perfect square. So like on number 10, it was a perfect square, but someone noticed it right away. Oh, square root of 81 is 9. That's just something that I know. If you don't recognize it right away, you'll have a big factor tree like this, and everything will have a partner. So multiply all your pairs together, and you don't need a square root. Any questions on that? All right, number 15. This is 6 and 7, 2 and 3. So what's going to come out? Who has a partner? Nobody. So you can just multiply them back out. What's 2 times 3 times 7? It better be 42, right? Because all those numbers were broken down from the 42. So when you put them all back together, you should get 42 where you started. So just square root of 42 is your answer. Nothing comes out. No repeaters. What are your questions? All right, next section, this is where we add, subtract, multiply, and divide radicals. You have one of each. When you're adding them, what are you looking for? The number that's in the radical? Yeah, so the numbers that are inside the radicals have to match. Do they match on number 16? So you can add the numbers in the front, the coefficients. What's 2 plus 1? So you have a 3 on the outside. Do you change the 3 on the inside? No. When you're adding and subtracting, you just leave it the same. Good. So 16, they were already what we call like radicals, so you could just add the coefficients, keep the radical the same. Are they like radicals on number 17? No. So on number 17, we need to try to simplify them first. This is 9 and 5, 3 and 3. So square root of 45 gives us 3 square root 5. Minus 20 is 4 and 5, 2 and 2. So the 2's come out and the 5 stays in. What's 3 square root 5 minus 2 square root 5? 1 square root 5, which is just square root 5. Good. If you put the 1, great. If not, find 2. Any questions on that one? Alright, when you are multiplying radicals, it does not matter if they're alike. You just multiply the number in the front together and the numbers on the inside together. So, the 3 and the 4 go together to give you what? 12. And the 2 and the 10 go together to give you what? 20. Good. Now, if you stopped here, you'd be about halfway through the work, so you'd get about half the points. You set it up right, but you didn't follow all the way through. If you want all the points, you need to simplify when you can. This is 4 times 5, 2 times 2, so the 2's come out. What's 2 times 12? And we get 24 square root 5. Questions on that one? Alright, number 19, this is where we have that trick to get rid of the square root in the denominator. We multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 3. Whatever is in the radical on the bottom, whatever this radical is, multiply the top and the bottom by that. That'll get it out of your denominator, which is the whole point of this section. So on the top you get 4 square root 3. On the bottom you get square root 9. What is the square root of 9? 3. Great. Any questions on the radical stuff? The radical stuff, I am just have a hunch it's going to be the worst page on the test. So this is where we really need to focus our studying if it's something that you struggle with. What are your questions? Okay, do you see how in the directions I give you the Pythagorean theorem? That's going to be there tomorrow as well on your test. So I would not spend a lot of time memorizing the Pythagorean theorem, but I would definitely spend a lot of time practicing how to use it. Alright, I'm going to give it to you, but I'm not going to tell you which numbers go where. So that's what you need to focus your energy on. Alright, number 20. Anyone know how I would set this one up?
5 squared, 12 squared, 6 squared.
Very good. 5 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. 5 squared is 25. 12 squared is 144 equals c squared. That's 169 equals c squared. So what's the c part? 13. Good. Now, I would also check, does it make sense? Would it make sense that your c is 13? Yeah, c should always be the largest one. So like if you would end up with like a C of like 9, you did something wrong, you need to start over. Okay, so this one is good, works out. Could 13 be your C on number 21? No, because you have a leg that's bigger than that. So our C should be some number bigger than 40, basically, is what you want to look out for. So it would be 9 squared plus 40 squared equals C squared. So, anyone know what C is? I'm just doing the math for you. This is something you can do in the calculator. 41 is our C, and that makes sense because it's bigger than 40, so we're good. Now, you haven't had to round yet, but be aware the directions say round to the nearest tenth. So if we would have got like 41 point a bunch of decimals, just keep one number after the decimal, round to the nearest tenth. All right, so you want point something, and then you're good. But make sure you're rounding, not just like dropping it off. All right, number 22. How do I start this one? Oh, careful. Yep. Good. 10 is our C, which is kind of a reminder that B is going to be smaller than that. So if you get something bigger than 10, you set it up wrong. This is going to be 64 plus B squared equals 100. Now you can't just take the square root right away. We got to do something else. What do we have to do on this one? Subtract the 64. Good. So B squared equals 36, and then what's B? 6, very good. Which is less than 10, so it makes sense. Alright, and last one in the Pythagorean theorem section. How do I set this one up? Good, and A squared plus, that'll be 100, equals 676. Do your subtraction step. We've had this one a few times, I think, this chapter. What do you end up getting? Yeah, so A is 24, which makes sense as long as it's less than the 26. Alright, so do you see how the distance formula is in the directions? That will be there tomorrow for you as well, so I would not spend a lot of time memorizing the distance formula. I would spend a lot of time making sure that you know how to use the distance formula. And you can see these are each worth 4 points, so these are getting to be pretty big point value type problems, so you don't want to miss these, alright? Number 24, I'm going to start by labeling it x1, y1, x2, y2. Alright, so I'm going to start with the x2, that's the 3, minus x1, that's the 6, squared, plus y2, which is 1, minus y1, which is 5, square it. Now, since these are worth so many points, even if you don't get the exact right final answer, you need to be showing your work along the way, because if you show us this step, we'll at least know that you know how to set the problem up so you get about half the points. So you would only get like -2 if you stopped here. But if you want all the points, you need to take it all the way to the end. Okay? 3 minus 6, that's -3, and -3 squared is 9. 1 minus 5, that's -4, and -4 squared is 16. When you add those together, you get 25, and the square root of 25 is 5. So, again, the directions say something about rounding to the nearest tenth. We haven't had to round it all yet. You might have to round tomorrow, so be aware of that and review it tonight on your own. Questions? Alright, same thing on the next one. x1, y1, x2, y2. So let's do -1 minus 7, square it. 12 minus -3, square it. Negative 1 minus 7, that's negative 8, and negative 8 squared is 64. 12 minus negative 3, that's 15, and 15 squared is 225. When you add those together, what do you get? 289, and what's the square root of 289? 17. Great. What are your questions? All right, the next section, again, there's a really good hint in the directions, so make sure you're reading through that. The exact same hint will appear tomorrow, so be aware of that. This is where, as long as you're making the longest side C, you should be good to go. So I want to do C squared, so 17 squared, equals 9 squared plus 12 squared, and then correct it as you go. 17 squared is 289, 9 squared is 81, and 12 squared is 144. Can anyone tell me what 81 plus 144 is? I know they're not equal. $81 plus 144. What is it? 225. So what symbol needs to go there? The greater than symbol. And if the C side is greater than the AB side, that's this case right here. So what type of triangle is it? Obtuse. So your final answer is obtuse, but if you want all the points, we need to see this part too. We need to see the part where you decide that it's greater than, and then the final answer is obtuse. These are not ones that you can just do in your head. You can do a lot of it on the calculator, but we still need to see, at least that last step where you tell us this is the total for the C side, this is the total for the AB side. All right, number 27. Let's start it again. I want to make sure the C is by itself, so the longest side squared equals the smaller side squared plus the other small side squared. This is going to be 625, I know that. Can anyone tell me what 15 squared plus 20 squared is? $625. So they're equal. When they're equal, what type of triangle is it? Right, good. All right, and last one on this section. It doesn't matter which one you make the C now. They're all the same. So you get 9 on the left and 18 on the right. So what symbol needs to go in between those? The less than symbol. So this is a acute. It's an acute triangle. Good. So again, we need to see some of the work. Like just this is enough. I didn't show you what I typed in the calculator or anything. I just did it. I got less than, and it's acute. Questions? This section is kind of tricky. You can see that the entire section's worth 10 points because there's 5 questions worth 2 points each. So make sure that you spend some time studying this tonight. 10 points is the difference between a letter grade, so this could take you from an A to a B or a B to a C, C to a D, hopefully nothing less than that. The key on this is to read the directions. The directions say that RV, so this whole thing, this whole median, is 36. If the whole thing is 36, what's the longer part? I know the longer one always touches the vertex, the shorter one always touches the midpoint. So there's a magical fraction we learned. Anyone remember it? Two-thirds? Yes, 2/3, the entire length of the median, will give you the longer side, the side that's touching the vertex. So what is 2/3 times 36? 24. What's the magical fraction for the shorter one? 1/3. So to find the shorter segment, I need to do 1/3 times 36, which is 12. Good. So those fractions are super important on those first two, especially when I give you the length of the entire median and you're asked for each segment length of these shorter pieces. Questions? All right, now the next one, I give you UT. You can see that it's 14, and I'm asking you for PU, this whole guy up here. So the longer one is always
2/3.
it's like 2/3 and 1/3, right? So this one has to be twice as big as this one. So if I give you the shorter one, what do you have to do to find the longer one? Multiply it by
2/3.
not 2/3. When I give you the whole thing, you multiply it by 2/3. But when I give you the shorter one, you just multiply it by 2 to find the longer one. It's like, how does 1/3 compare to 2/3? Well, 2/3 is twice as big as 1/3, right? So this is 1/3 of the whole thing. This is 2/3 of the whole thing, so it has to be twice as big. So what is PU? 28? Twice as big as 14? So when I give you the smaller segment, you multiply it by 2 to find the bigger segment. Questions? Alright, the next one we're trying to find this guy, PV. Well, V is the midpoint, right? So if this side's 17, what's this side? 17. So that's a pretty easy one. And then the last one, I'm asking you for this entire side down here. So if half the side's 15, what's the whole thing? 30. Good. Each line is worth 2 points. So if you're like, I'll never remember 2/3, 1/3, then maybe you'll just take the 4-point loss, but don't skip the whole section because you can definitely get those last 3. They're pretty easy. Alright, so be careful on how you approach the points on this test. Any questions? Alright, this last section is that triangle inequality theorem. It states that the smaller two sides added together have to be bigger than the third side. Is 7 plus 3 bigger than 11? No, so these could not be a triangle. Same thing on 35. These smaller two sides have to be bigger than the third side. Are they? Is 9 bigger than 8? Yes, so these are the sides of a triangle. Good. So those are all the questions on the regular portion of the test. Alright, let's take a minute to go over the bonus. Remember, bonus is just exactly what it says, bonus. So if you don't want to do them, that's fine. If you want to try them, that's fine. There are no partial credit opportunities for the bonus. Either you have the right answer or you don't. So keep that in mind as well. Part A of the bonus, you can see that these angles are marked as being congruent. If the angles are congruent, the sides opposite those angles are also congruent. So this is 4x minus 1 equals 23. And then you solve for x. So you'd add 1 to both sides. Divide both sides by 4, so you should get that x equals 6. Questions on the first bonus, part A? Uh-huh.
But I thought we were supposed to change it. I didn't know if you wanted us to put, like, what is it, the radicals for it?
There are no radicals on this.
Okay.
Nope.
I had simplified, but
No, the only time you use radicals if it's a right triangle and you're using like a squared plus b squared equals c squared. But when you're just setting them equal and solving for x, you shouldn't have any square roots. Other questions on part A? Remember, this is all or nothing. So if you did, for some reason, put square root 6, you wouldn't get any of the points. So you have to be exactly correct to get points on these. All right, all the angles should add up to what in a triangle? 180. So I'm going to do 90. Good. Add them all up. 90 plus 58 plus 3x minus 7 equals 180. Now, solving this is a little more challenging because I have a bunch of like terms over here. So you need to do 90 plus 58. That's 148. Minus 7 is 141. Plus 3x equals 180. What happens when you subtract 141 from both sides? What do you get? 39. All right, and then how do you get the x? Divide both sides by 3. So what is your x value here? 13. Good. Now, the bonuses on your test are very similar to these, so I would study these. They're not the exact same problems, though, so don't try to just memorize the solutions. I see that happen a lot. That will not work out for you. There are actually 3 bonuses on your test, so you might want to look through some more challenging problems and study how we did those throughout the chapter. But that is basically this test in a nutshell. Any questions?